Amara Dlamini had been waiting for Christmas all year. She drove back to her family home in Mbabane, Eswatini, with a car full of gifts and a heart full of hope. She had wrapped every present carefully because, deep inside, she wanted this Christmas to be different. She walked through the door with a smile and said, "Merry Christmas, everyone." Her mother, Thandi, hugged her for a moment, and her brother Cabello sat at the table enjoying the family dinner. For a few hours, Amara felt like everything was finally normal. She looked around at the Christmas lights, the food on the table, and the people she loved. She quietly thought, maybe this Christmas everything will finally feel normal. Maybe her family would finally see how much she had tried. Maybe they would finally appreciate everything she had done for them. But Amara didn't know that this night would become the most painful Christmas of her life. After dinner, when everyone finished eating, her father, Saifo, put his glass down and looked at her with a serious expression. "Amara, we need to talk," he said. Her smile slowly disappeared. She looked at him and asked, "Is everything okay?" There was silence in the room. Then her father said the words she never expected to hear. "You can't stay here anymore." Amara froze. She thought she had misunderstood him. "Dad, what do you mean?" But nobody said anything, and in that moment, Amara realized that the place she called home was no longer waiting for her. Amara Dlamini had spent years wondering why she always felt like the unwanted one in her own family. Since she was a little girl, she always felt like she had to work twice as hard just to be noticed. While other children were enjoying their childhood, Amara was learning how to take care of things at home. She was the daughter who woke up early to help her mother. She was the one who cleaned the house, prepared meals, and stayed awake when someone in the family needed help. But somehow, no matter how much she did, it was never enough. Her younger brother, Cabello, was always treated differently. Everyone celebrated his small achievements. When he did something good, the whole family would talk about it for days. "Look at Cabello, he is going to make us proud," her father would say. Amara would stand nearby with a smile, hoping that one day someone would say those words about her too. But that day never came. When Amara got good grades, it was expected. When she helped the family, it was seen as her responsibility. When Cabello helped once, everyone called him a hero. She remembered one Christmas when she was younger. She had spent the entire day helping her mother prepare food and decorate the house. Her hands were tired, but she was happy because she thought maybe her family would notice. That night, everyone praised Cabello for bringing a small gift home. Nobody mentioned Amara. She sat quietly at the table, smiling while hiding the disappointment in her heart. As she grew older, Amara became the person everyone depended on. If her father needed something, he called her. If her mother had a problem, she was the first person to help. If Cabello made a mistake, Amara was often the one fixing it. But when she needed support, the room suddenly became quiet. People only remembered her when they needed something from her. Amara never complained because she loved her family. She kept telling herself, "One day they will understand. One day they will see how much I care." She carried their problems like they were her own. She sacrificed her dreams so her family could have an easier life. But deep inside, there was a small part of Amara that was tired. Tired of always being the strong one. Tired of always proving her worth. And the most painful part was that the people she wanted love from the most were the same people who made her feel invisible. She never imagined that the same family she protected for years would be the reason she would spend Christmas night standing outside with nowhere to go. The moment Amara heard her father say, "You can't stay here anymore," she felt like the whole world stopped. She looked at her mother, hoping Thandi would say something. She waited for her brother Cabello to stand up and defend her. But nobody moved. Nobody said, "Dad, this isn't right." Nobody asked, "Where will she go?" The silence hurt more than the words. Amara slowly walked to her room and packed her things. Her hands were shaking as she placed her clothes into an old suitcase. She looked around the room one last time. This was the room where she had spent years dreaming about a better future. This was the home where she had given so much love. And now, on Christmas Eve, she was leaving it like a stranger. Her mother stood near the door but didn't stop her. "Amara," she quietly said. For a second, Amara thought maybe her mother would finally hug her and tell her to stay. But those words never came. Amara picked up her suitcase and walked outside. The cold night air hit her face. The Christmas lights from the house were still shining behind her, but she was no longer part of that warmth. She stood on the road, holding her suitcase tightly, trying not to cry. Cars passed by. People were going home to their families, laughing and celebrating Christmas. But Amara was standing alone. On the one night when everyone was supposed to feel loved, she felt completely forgotten. She took out her phone and stared at the screen. Maybe her mother would message her. Maybe her father would call and say, "Come back home." Maybe Cabello would finally realize what they had done. But the screen stayed empty. No missed calls. No messages. No one asking if she was okay. Minutes turned into hours, and Amara kept looking at her phone, hoping for even one sign that someone cared. But nothing came. A tear rolled down her cheek as she whispered to herself, "I gave everything to this family, and they still left me." The freezing wind became stronger, and she hugged herself, trying to stay warm. She had no idea where she would sleep. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But standing there alone with her suitcase, Amara made one promise to herself. She would survive this night. She would find a way forward. Even though the people she loved had turned their backs on her, she refused to let this moment destroy her. Because sometimes the darkest nights are the beginning of a completely different life. Amara walked for a long time without knowing where she was going. The streets of Mbabane were quiet that Christmas night. Most people were inside their homes, sitting with their families, sharing food, laughing and making memories. But Amara was outside with a suitcase in her hand and a broken heart. After walking for what felt like hours, she finally stopped near a small cafe that was still open. The warm lights from inside caught her attention. She slowly sat down outside the cafe, placing her suitcase beside her. She looked through the window and saw people drinking coffee and talking happily. For a moment, she imagined herself sitting there with her family. Then reality came back. Her family had chosen to leave her alone on Christmas night. Amara looked down at her hands and tried to hold back her tears. She had always been the strong one, the person who helped everyone, the person who stayed when things became difficult. But tonight she didn't know how to be strong anymore. She quietly whispered, "What am I going to do now?" A few minutes later, a man walked out of the cafe. His name was Loisy Mbeki. He noticed Amara sitting alone in the cold with a suitcase beside her. He stopped and looked at her with concern. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Amara quickly wiped her tears and looked away. "I'm fine," she replied. But Loisy could see that she wasn't. He looked at the suitcase and then back at her. "Sometimes people say they're fine when they're actually carrying a lot of pain," he said. Those words touched something inside Amara. For the first time that night, someone didn't judge her. Someone didn't ask what she did wrong. Someone simply cared. Amara stayed quiet for a moment. Then, slowly she started talking. "My family kicked me out tonight," she said. Loisy looked surprised. "Tonight? On Christmas Eve?" Amara nodded. She told him everything. How she came home with gifts. How she thought maybe her family would finally accept her. How her father told her she couldn't stay anymore. Her voice became emotional as she said, "I spent my whole life trying to be enough for them, but I guess I never was." Loisy listened without interrupting. Amara continued, "I helped them whenever they needed me. I gave up so much for them. And when I needed them the most, they let me walk away." For the first time in years, Amara allowed herself to say everything she had been keeping inside. She wasn't talking to a family member who would blame her. She wasn't talking to someone who expected something from her. She was talking to a stranger who actually listened. After a few moments, Loisy sat down nearby and said, "You know, sometimes losing a place doesn't mean you lost your future." Amara looked at him. She didn't know why, but those simple words gave her a small feeling of hope. That night, when everyone else had turned their backs on her, a stranger was the only person who stopped to ask if she was okay. And Amara had no idea that this one small act of kindness would change the direction of her entire life. While Amara sat outside the small cafe with Loisy, she never imagined that someone would finally see the person she had always hidden. For years, everyone only saw what Amara did for them. They saw the daughter who cooked, the daughter who helped, the daughter who sacrificed. But nobody saw the dreams she had inside her. When Amara was younger, she had always been creative and full of ideas. She loved finding solutions to problems. She could look at something simple and imagine how to make it better. Teachers used to tell her, "Amara, you think differently. You have a special mind." She had dreams of building something of her own one day. She wanted to create a successful business and show people what she was capable of. But life at home slowly changed those dreams. Her family needed her. Her mother depended on her. Her father expected her to always put the family first. So Amara started putting her own dreams aside. Every time she wanted to take a step forward, another family problem pulled her back. She told herself, "Maybe later. I'll chase my dreams later." But later kept getting pushed further away. She watched Cabello follow his goals while she stayed behind fixing everyone else's problems. She had notebooks full of ideas hidden in her room, plans she created late at night, designs she worked on when everyone was asleep. But nobody ever asked her, "What do you want for your future?" Nobody ever noticed the talent she was carrying. That night, while talking to Lwazi, Amara mentioned some of her old ideas. At first, she didn't think they were important. "I used to write business plans and create ideas," she said with a small smile. "But it doesn't matter anymore." Lwazi looked at her. "Why would you say that?" Amara looked down. "Because dreams don't mean much when you're just trying to survive." Lwazi stayed quiet for a moment. Then he asked her questions about her ideas. As Amara explained them, her voice slowly changed. The sadness started disappearing. The confidence she had buried for years started coming back. She talked about solutions, designs, and ways she believed things could be improved. Lwazi listened carefully. He wasn't just hearing her story. He was seeing her ability. "You realize you're actually very talented, right?" he said. Amara laughed softly. "Talented? I don't think anyone has ever said that to me." Lwazi smiled. "Maybe that's because the people around you were too busy taking from you to notice what you could become." Those words stayed in Amara's heart. For the first time, someone saw more than her pain. Someone saw her potential. That cold Christmas night, Amara thought she had lost everything. But she didn't know that the person sitting beside her was about to help her discover the part of herself she had forgotten. The girl who had spent years being overlooked was finally about to be seen. The next morning, Christmas Day arrived. For most people, it was a day full of happiness, family, and celebration. But for Amara, it was the morning after the most painful night of her life. She woke up in a small room where Lwazi had helped her stay for the night. She looked around and for a moment she forgot what happened. Then everything came back. Her father's words. The suitcase. Cold Street. The feeling of being unwanted. Amara looked at her phone and saw no messages from her family. A part of her heart still hoped maybe someone would call. Maybe her mother would apologize. Maybe her father would say they made a mistake. But nothing happened. She took a deep breath and tried to stay strong. She didn't know that while she was sitting there feeling like her life was falling apart, something completely different was happening behind the scenes. The night before, after listening to Amara's ideas, Lwazi couldn't stop thinking about her talent. He knew there was something special about the way she thought. So early that morning he made a few calls. Lwazi worked with a company that helped develop new business ideas, and he decided to share Amara's concept with his team. He showed them her plans. He explained how she saw problems differently. He told them about a woman who had spent years helping everyone else while hiding her own potential. The investors listened carefully. First they were curious. Then they became impressed. Because Amara's idea wasn't just a dream. It was something real. Something that could grow. Something that could change lives. Later that morning, while Amara was looking out of the window, her phone suddenly rang. She looked at the number. It was Lwazi. She answered quietly. "Hello. Amara, I have something to tell you," Lwazi said. She smiled a little. "What happened?" There was excitement in his voice. "I shared your idea with my company's investors." Amara became silent. "You did what?" "I wanted them to see what I saw. Your talent, your vision, your ability." Amara didn't know what to say. She was used to people ignoring her ideas. She was used to people telling her to focus on everyone else. Not once did she expect someone to believe in her. Then Loisy said the words that changed everything. "They want to meet you." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Wait, really?" "Yes. They believe your idea has potential. They want to give you an opportunity to develop it." For a moment, Amara couldn't speak. Just one night ago, she was standing outside with a suitcase, thinking she had lost everything. And now, on Christmas morning, someone was opening a door she never thought would exist. She looked down at her hands and remembered all the times she felt invisible. All the times she wondered if she was good enough. But now someone finally saw her. Not as a daughter who was responsible for everything. Not as someone's helper. But as Amara. A woman with talent. A woman with dreams. A woman with a future. And for the first time in a long time, Amara smiled. Because maybe being pushed out of her old life wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning of the life she was always meant to have. Months passed, and Amara's life started changing in ways she never imagined. The girl who once stood outside her family's house with a suitcase in her hand was now waking up every morning with a purpose. It wasn't easy. There were many nights when Amara stayed awake working. She had doubts. She had moments where she wondered if she was really capable. But every time she remembered that cold Christmas night, she reminded herself why she couldn't give up. Someone had finally believed in her. Now it was her turn to believe in herself. With Loisy's support and her own hard work, Amara started building her idea into something real. She spent hours planning, learning, and improving every detail. She didn't just want success. She wanted to prove that the dreams she had buried for years were worth fighting for. Slowly, people started noticing her work. The project that started as a simple idea became something much bigger. The team was impressed by her dedication. Her leadership skills surprised everyone. People who once overlooked her were now asking for her opinion. "Amara, what do you think?" Those simple words meant so much to her. Because for years nobody cared about what she thought. She had spent so much time being the person behind everyone else's success. Now she was finally creating her own. Her project became successful, and with that success came independence. Amara got her own place. She built a comfortable life. She no longer had to depend on anyone who didn't value her. For the first time, she could buy things without worrying. She could make decisions without asking for permission. She could look in the mirror and see someone she was proud of. But the biggest change wasn't the money. It was the confidence. The girl who once thought she wasn't enough finally understood her own worth. Meanwhile, back in the Dlamini family home, things started changing too. People began hearing Amara's name. They saw articles about her work. They heard others praising her ideas. The same daughter they once called a burden was now someone people respected. Cabello saw her success. Her parents saw her success. And slowly, they started realizing something painful. They had spent years looking at Amara as someone who needed them. But the truth was, she was the person who had always been holding everything together. They didn't see her value when she was sitting at their dinner table. They didn't see her potential when she was helping them. They only saw it when the rest of the world started seeing it first. Amara never became successful because she wanted revenge. She became successful because she finally chose herself. And the people who once pushed her away were now watching from a distance as the daughter they underestimated built a life they never thought she could have. The Dlamini family never expected to see Amara's name everywhere. At first, they didn't believe it. They heard people talking about her success. They saw her project being celebrated. They saw pictures of Amara standing confidently, surrounded by people who respected her. The same girl they had sent away on Christmas Eve was now someone the world was noticing. Her father, Saifo, sat quietly one evening looking at an article about Amara. He stared at the screen for a long time. "This is Amara," he said softly. His wife, Thandi, looked over. The woman they once thought would always need them had built a life without them. And that realization hurt. Thandi started remembering all the moments when Amara was there for the family. Times she helped. The time she sacrificed. The time she stayed quiet even when she was hurt. For the first time, Thandi wondered if they had lost someone special. Not because Amara became successful, but because they never appreciated her when she was still there. A few days later, Amara's phone started ringing. She looked at the screen and saw a name she hadn't seen in months. Mom! Her heart stopped for a moment. Part of her wanted to answer immediately. The little girl inside her still wanted her mother's love. But another part remembered standing alone outside that Christmas night. She let the call go. A few minutes later, a message appeared. Amara, please talk to me. Miss you. I know things happened, but you are still my daughter. Amara read the message again and again. It was the first time her mother had spoken to her with such emotion, but it also brought back painful memories. She remembered all the times she needed someone and nobody came. More messages followed. We are proud of you. We want to fix things. Please give us a chance. Then one day her father called. Amara stared at the phone before answering. When she finally picked up, there was silence on the other side. Then Saifo spoke. Amara. His voice sounded different. Not angry. Not demanding. Just tired. I have been thinking about everything, he said. Amara stayed quiet. Her father took a deep breath. We made a mistake. Those words were the words she had waited years to hear. But hearing them now felt different. Because the old Amara would have done anything to hear an apology. The new Amara had already learned how to stand on her own. I should have seen your value before everyone else did, her father continued. I should have supported you instead of pushing you away. Amara closed her eyes. She felt many emotions at once. Sadness. And a strange feeling of peace. Because finally, the people who ignored her were admitting what she always knew. She was never a burden. She was never the problem. She was the daughter who had always been trying. The Dlamini family wanted Amara back. But this time things were different. They weren't calling the girl who needed them anymore. They were calling the woman who had learned how to live without them. 1 year later, Christmas came again. But this Christmas was completely different for Amara. The last time she stood near her family's house, she was holding a suitcase with tears in her eyes. This time, she was arriving in a beautiful car, wearing confidence instead of fear. After months of trying to fix their relationship, the Dlamini family invited Amara for Christmas dinner. The message from her mother was simple. We would really love to have you with us this Christmas. Amara stared at the message for a long time. A part of her remembered the pain of the last Christmas. Cold night, the empty phone screen, the feeling of being unwanted. But another part of her knew she was no longer the same person who left that house. So she decided to go. Not because she needed them, but because she had finally found peace. When Amara arrived, the whole family became quiet. Her father, Saifo, looked at her and froze for a moment. Because the daughter standing in front of him was not the same girl he had pushed away. There was no suitcase in her hand, no tears on her face, no fear in her eyes, only confidence. Her mother, Thandi, walked toward her slowly. Amara. Her voice became emotional. For a moment nobody knew what to say. Amara smiled gently. Merry Christmas. Those simple words carried so much meaning. She walked inside the house and looked around. The same walls. The same Christmas decorations. The same place where her heart had been broken 1 year ago. But this time, she wasn't walking in as someone who was hoping to be accepted. She was walking in as someone who already knew her worth. During dinner, everyone listened when Amara spoke. They asked about her work. They asked about her success. They asked about the life she built. And Amara noticed something. For the first time, her family wasn't ignoring her. They were actually seeing her. Her father looked at her proudly. I still can't believe how much you have achieved, he said. Amara smiled softly. I just finally had the chance to become who I was always meant to be. Those words stayed in the room. Because everyone knew the truth. Amara didn't become successful because they supported her. She became successful because she kept going even when they walked away. Her brother Cabello also realized something that night. The sister he always thought would be there no matter what had become someone powerful on her own. The person they once treated like a burden had become the person everyone respected. The family looked at Amara sitting at the Christmas table and finally understood. They didn't lose a daughter because she left. They lost her because they failed to see her value when she was right in front of them. The girl they had thrown out into the cold night had built her own warmth. She had built her own home. She had built her own world. 1 year after the Christmas night that changed everything, Amara was sitting in her own beautiful home, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and people who truly cared about her. The Christmas tree was glowing. The table was full of food. And for the first time in her life, Amara was celebrating without feeling like she had to prove she belonged. Loisy was sitting beside her, smiling as everyone shared stories and laughed together. The people around her were not there because they needed something from her. They were there because they valued her. They saw her. They respected her. Amara looked around the room and felt a feeling she had never felt before. For a moment, she looked at the Christmas lights and remembered that cold night 1 year ago. She remembered standing outside her family's house with a suitcase. She remembered staring at her phone, waiting for someone to call. She remembered wondering if anyone would ever choose her. Back then, she thought losing her family meant losing everything. But now she understood something. Sometimes losing the people who don't appreciate you creates space for the people who truly do. Amara had built a life she once only dreamed about. She built her career. She built her confidence. She built a home filled with love. And the most beautiful part was that she did it without becoming bitter. She didn't let the pain destroy her. She used it as the reason to become stronger. Meanwhile, the Dlamini family had also changed. They finally understood what they had lost. They didn't just lose the daughter who helped them. They didn't just lose the person who always stood by them. They lost an amazing person who had so much love, talent, and potential. They lost someone special because they failed to see her worth when they had the chance. Amara looked at the people around her and smiled. The same girl who once stood alone on a freezing Christmas night was now surrounded by people who made her feel at home. She finally had the life she always deserved. And as she watched the snow-like lights around her home, she quietly remembered the night everything changed. My family kicked me out the night before Christmas thinking I had nowhere to go. But the next morning, I found the life I was always meant to have.